What we have here is the current OEM design. It is engaged with all of its spring pressure and all the holding power of its friction material. What we will do is simulate the fan blade at high RPM and force the fan clutch to slip. Then this meter will read out in inch-pounds how much torque the fan clutch produced. And as you can see, the fan clutch did not quite get to the advertised 2,100 inch-pounds of torque. But it's close enough not to make a practical difference. When you install the Gold Top rebuild kit, here's what happens. When you install the Gold Top rebuild kit, you upgrade the torque from 2,100 inch-pounds of torque to well over 5,000 inch-pounds of torque. Now you have a fan clutch that is more than capable of handling any fan blade that exists in our industry or that ever will exist in our industry. The Gold Top rebuild kit from Kitmasters is your solution to premature fan clutch failures. First, I'll demonstrate how to rebuild the fan clutch using the OEM rebuild kit, and then I'll demonstrate how to rebuild the fan clutch using the Gold Top rebuild. To remove the top friction plate, you're going to take a T55 Torx bit that they provide you, and you're going to put it into this jack bolt in the center of the fan clutch. So you take your T55 jack bolt, you set your gun to loosen in order to loosen. This top plate will come off, you take this apart and you throw it away. It's very important that you use this caging tool because without the caging tool, the friction material is caging these springs. So you want to make sure that you use the caging tool, cage the spring, and then remove the friction screws, and you can take the friction material off and you'll throw that away. But you take this spring housing off and you're going to throw that away. Inside of there will be a primary seal. You take that seal out and you throw that away. There's a retaining ring. You go in and get this retaining ring, which we've already taken the liberty of removing, but you take that out and you throw that away. Then you'll open up the OEM kit. The first step is to take the two pulley bearings, press the two pulley bearings back into the pulley, and take the pulley and put the pulley back on the shaft. And there's nothing very complicated about that. Once you have the pulley back on the shaft, you can take your new air cartridge, drop it down into the shaft, put the snap ring back on, and put the lock nut back on. You're going to remember that you saved this piece, so you're going to take their face seal and you're going to install their face seal. Now there's an O-ring on the other side of that face seal, so you have to make sure you lube that O-ring. If you don't lube that O-ring correctly, that's going to be an opportunity for a premature failure. Then you take the face seal and you thread it into there and you tighten it down. And when you tighten it down, you have to be real careful not to over-tighten it because it's easy to strip those threads. And if you do that, obviously that'll be a premature failure. Once you install that correctly, you install this O-ring. The O-ring here is a major opportunity for a leak path, so it's very important that you install this O-ring correctly. To put lube onto this surface, to put lube onto the surface of the O-ring, and then to put lube onto the surface of the cavity. Then to install the O-ring, and to make sure you don't roll the O-ring over. If you roll the O-ring or if you get twists in the O-ring, if you missed any spots of lube in any of those steps, then that's going to be an opportunity for a premature failure. What happens oftentimes here is people will press this in and they will get a pinch in their O-ring. So they'll take it back out again, take more care the second time, make sure they apply even pressure, and install that air chamber cap. Now you've correctly installed the air chamber cap, but if you did it the first time where you pinched that O-ring, now you've already scored the O-ring in two positions and that's going to be an opportunity for a premature failure. The next step would be to put your retaining ring back in. Now in a lot of cases people will look at this and it'll look like this is installed fine. So they'll move on to the next step, they'll completely rebuild the fan clutch and they'll realize they forgot this piece. They'll take the whole fan clutch apart and put this back in. Or sometimes not, which would obviously be a premature failure. But to get the retaining ring in, if the retaining ring's not seated in the groove correctly, that'll be an opportunity for a premature failure. Then you put on your primary seal. Again, this is an opportunity for a leak path. So the proper way to do this is to lube up this O-ring, to lube up the surface. If you miss any spots of lube, that's going to be an opportunity for a premature failure. And then to install this seal. The seal sits on a ridge. So to make sure that this seal is completely resting on the ridge correctly, if it's not resting on the ridge correctly, that's an opportunity for a premature failure. If you've installed it just like I did here, that'll be a premature failure because there's a right side up and a wrong side up to this seal. And if you put this in incorrectly, then that's going to be an opportunity for a premature failure. Then you put on the spring housing, line up the holes, install the friction material, and put in the 8 friction screws. And the 8 friction screws have to be torqued down to the right specification. If they're not, then that could lead to a premature failure. The next step would be to put the friction plate on, make sure that that's torqued down to the right specification. If that's not torqued down to the right specification, that's an opportunity for a premature failure. Once you do this completely, then you've installed the OEM rebuild kit into this fan clutch. Next, we're going to demonstrate how to rebuild the fan clutch using the Gold Top rebuild kit. The first step is to take the 2 pulley bearings, install them into the core the same way you did before. To take the air cartridge, the snap ring and the lock nut and install it the same way you did before. The third step is to simply take the Gold Top out of the box, drop it onto the core, and that's your installation. We took 9 of their subcomponent pieces and turned it into one assembly to make a 3-step installation. Put in pulley bearings, drop in air cartridge, install Gold Top, done.